This is a unmodified brand new installation of the original Assetto Corsa, which came out over 10 years ago. And playing this highlights more clearly than anything else the degree to which modern sim racing has completely lost the plot, with even the developers of this title seemingly abandoning everything that made and still makes playing this game so special. With that in mind, this video is a discussion on how sim developers get lost in complexity, so-called realism, and features that ultimately are a detriment to the game that everyone's playing. Subscribe if you want to be able to unsubscribe. Clicking the like button does absolutely nothing. And thank you to channel members, supporters and viewers that allow us to say things on this channel that only the dumbest of YouTubers would dare to say. First, let me begin by explaining what makes the original Assetto Corsa so special and so unique as a racing simulator and video game. The vehicles allow the driver more freedom than just about any other simulator on the market. And what I mean by freedom is that the driver at any point in time can choose between how much they're driving on the steering wheel versus how much they're driving using the brake and the accelerator pedal. In combination with this, and what informs the driver of the decision that they're going to make in terms of how they choose to drive, is the game giving the driver enough force feedback detail to feel exactly where the car and the tyres are at. Now, you could certainly argue that the original Assetto Corsa's tyre model and physics are overly simplistic. An argument you could also make about the even older original Automobilista. However, the lack of complexity undeniably allowed those developers to dial in and deliver a much tighter driving experience in the conditions and situations that the vast majority of sim racing takes place in. And for all the versatility we see with the more advanced tyre models in recent simulators, supporting dynamic track conditions, thermal properties and much more realistic tyre wear, ultimately all this is for naught if it can't also be done whilst matching the quality established by Automobilista 1 and the original Assetto Corsa. It's all very well having the most complex, super advanced megahertz bonanza physics engine and tyres that take multiple days to pre-compile, and maybe even the greatest real-world driver feedback with cars in the simulator capturing even the smallest of testicle vibration. What is the point if fundamentally, for the vast majority of driving, the cars don't actually handle like cars? The cars cannot be counter-steered like cars. The force feedback does not communicate to the driver the pertinent forces to allow a driver to reactively handle a vehicle, both responding to what's happened and also preempting what could happen. Not through rote memorization and Guitar Hero-like trial and error of playing the video game too much, but through experiencing it directly and responding in real time to what's actually going on in any given moment. And the most guilty of the absurd state of current racing simulators has to be Kunos. If Kunos merely improved the curbing behaviour in Assetto Corsa 1 and the behaviour of the suspension over large bumps, along with investigating ways to make the netcode closer to that of Race Room or R-Factor 2 and LMU, and then updated the graphics engine so it was basically shader patch and pure in the game without you having to install any modifications, and finally offered a daily online ranked racing service similar to Gran Turismo or what you see in LMU, but the bulk of the rest of the game was exactly the same as it currently is, with the same general structure, effectively just been Assetto Corsa 1.5, I guarantee you the hype would be absolutely off the charts. It seems crazy to me how developers like Kunos do something so ahead of its time, to the degree that most driver training centres, many real-world Formula 1 drivers, and just about every pro that I've spoken to agrees that the video game is the ultimate home simulator, not only for training, but for handling performance and natural driving experience. They do all that, and 10 years later, still that title is ahead of anything else on the market. And rather than polishing that more and capturing its essence and allowing that essence to shine through as best as it possibly could, the developer goes down this route of introducing absurd complexity, absurd technologies. And sure, maybe that is exciting from a research and development perspective, and maybe that is exciting for physics programmers and the types of crazy people that work in simulation. But why not fully capitalise on something that's right there and known to be so goddamn incredible? In game development and software development, there's a well-known thing called feature creep, where instead of polishing what's there or locking down what's there or focusing on what is actually pertinent, developers can get distracted and keep adding more and more new things, increasing the complexity because, well, more is better and more complex is more advanced and, well, that's better. And then before you know it, the point of the original product or the entire product itself is lost to development hell. To be clear, I absolutely love seeing simulator developers do crazy stuff and try to push the boundaries in physics simulation and what's possible in real-time physics simulation. However, when you have a title that is well and above ahead of everything else, at what point do you stop and go, right, let's just lock this one down and let's just capitalise on the most that this thing can offer? Sure, let's do some side projects. Let's maybe work on something else as well with a different department. But let's lock down this original thing that's pure gold and really polish that gold as much as possible and capitalise on that gold as much as possible. Let's not just park that golden car in a garage under a cover and leave it for 70 years. The painful irony of this is that you have games that are literal turds, and those turds get polished. Non-stop turd polishing. But they were turds in the first place. Apparently, only the turds can be polished in sim racing. So what needs to be done? What is the solution? Well, I propose these 5 points. 1. Only have complex tyre models if your tyre model can beat out Automobilista 1 and Assetto Corsa 1 in basic handling. 2. Force feedback should be at a standard of Richard Burns Rally, Assetto Corsa 1 or Automobilista 1 at the absolute bare minimum. And ideally should be even better if you have a more peaky and more complicated tyre model. 3. Only do new core features and advanced physics if you have a better ranked multiplayer than Le Mans Ultimate or GT Sport. 4. If your sim has a core component worse than a game from over 20 years ago, don't bloody release it. And 5, if you have already made an industry-leading simulator, polish it more. Don't keep reinventing the wheel. Of course, it's amazing to be able to sit back as a useless YouTuber that contributes absolutely nothing to the world of sim racing and tell all the people doing all the work exactly what they should be doing and how bad indeed they are doing. I hate people that do that. And let's be honest, the fact that racing simulators and the state of racing simulators is pure torture is probably the most realistic aspect of racing simulators. Maybe by the end of this year though, sim racing will turn a corner after a decade of despair, and maybe the golden age will actually be here. Who knows? I'm old, I'm jaded, and sim racing has driven me totally insane. If you got to the end of this video and leave your thoughts in the comments section, place a little teapot emoji next to your comment, then we'll know who to purge. Thanks for watching this. Happy tea drinking. Until the next one, take care and goodbye.